it's a mockumentary road movie that features a kind of lonely, awkward monarch, King Nicholas III, who is on a state visit in Istanbul when he receives the news that Wallonia, the southern part of Belgium, has declared its independence. So he has to, of course, rush home and fix his kingdom, but a solar storm strikes, and there's no communication, there are no planes, and he's stuck. But this simply won't do, so he gets him and his entourage all kitted out in Bulgarian folklore dresses, and they escape over the border, and then there starts this odyssey across the Balkans, where he, for the first time in his life, is anonymous and without protocol, without security. He meets ordinary people, and he wakes up in every sense. He discovers who he is and who he could potentially be as a public figure. So it's an awakening of a solitary man who's been deeply isolated by protocol and by a structure that's a little old-fashioned. So, very dangerous. Everyone says comedy is the most difficult thing in the world to do, and it's true. So it made 3 quite serious films that are kind of tragic, and we had become sort of categorized as specialized in sorrowful tales about man and the environment. And so financing something that was supposed to be comic was a nightmare, really not funny. But we were somehow convinced that, this tragedy and comedy, they're such close neighbors, and we come from Belgium, we're specialists in absurdity, so we just have to take that one bold step over, and it was King of the Belgians. And it was a struggle to finance. It was great, great, great fun, but really difficult to make. And we realized only once we were finally facing a public that we had in hand actually something that transcended borders, transcended cultural borders, linguistic borders, and actually spoke to a lot of people, not only in Europe, but beyond, all over the world. Because this quest for identity and this search for unity and this longing for purpose is universal. So our key was to center every single decision around and on the character of the king, and the golden rule from the beginning, especially for the actors. From the first day I said, this is not a comedy. And so they play it very real. And that's part of the magic of the film, is that they actually undertake this journey. We shot it chronologically, and it's quite believable. And if you look at it carefully, in fact, it's actually possible. The most unlikely thing is that Wallonia declares its independence, because it's more likely that Flanders would declare its independence these days, but you never know, because we're constantly surprised, all of us, by what's going on in the world. So you never know. But it is believable, and that was one of the keys to the film. I have a kind of Anglo sensibility, dry humor. The Belgians have a very, both sides, very self-deprecating humor. They can really make fun of themselves. It's one of the characteristics of Belgians that's greatly appreciated. And everyone loves making fun of the Belgians. I mean, you just say to a Brit the word Belgium and they start cackling with laughter, and all of our neighbors make fun of us all the time. So you're already in a sentiment of fun. But the sense of humor is it's strictly intuition, following and just remaining really steadfast. I mean, through the editing until, before the mix is done, before the voiceover was in place, before the rhythm and the tone really and the musical elements were found their spot, it was almost impossible to judge the film. But we were convinced that somehow in there, if we were following the inner logic of the film, it would work, and it would be very charming and moving and slightly disturbing at times and very believable. But this is strictly holding on to your convictions, because everyone around you is doubting, and everyone's waiting there a bit cynically and a bit like everyone was very curious at the world premiere in Venice. Are these guys even remotely funny? Are they capable of this? And we were in a context with a ton of Italians, and they have a very big open heart towards this. Towards our work in general, and then towards the film and that sensibility. So it was launched from the first screening, legendary, I think I've been told. It was only that moment when we realized it actually works. It actually works. It actually speaks to Bulgarians, to Iranians, to Americans, to Colombians, and it's a big surprise for us that it works. But in the editing, I was laughing every day. I just laughed myself silly. And then some of our partners who saw different versions along the way were like, this is just terrible, don't show it to anybody. But I was sure, we were sure that inside there somewhere was something very original and very special and very honest, and funny.